All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Hope you had a good weekend out there. Today, we're going to be talking about the season in review for James McFadden and his 2024 Highland Racing campaign. It was definitely a very good year for McFadden with a lot of ups and definitely a couple of downs throughout the year as well. One of the downs started right off at the beginning when he missed the first four races of the season, but he was able to jump right in and be competitive immediately when he got here to the States. And he was competitive each and every night. One of the best, one of the most consistent drivers all the way throughout the entire season. And that's not just in feature action. He was very good in qualifying, had a very high amount of quick times, a very low average qualifying effort as well. And McFadden, as we mentioned in that video talking about Aaron Reitzel, I mean, he is one of the most popular drivers, I would say, that was on High Limit all of last year. I mean, he's obviously very popular in Australia, but people here in the States love him as well. They love the shoey. They love the accent. They love his driving style. And it definitely is going to hurt not having him on the tour next year. But he did have a very, very good season this year with Highland Racing. 47 starts on the year. Should have been around 50 or 51 if he did make it to all of those races at the beginning of the season. He did accrue 3 wins. He had 18 top fives, 35 top tens, and he led 139 laps of main event action this year. He would end up 4th in the overall championship point standings. A very good recovery after being, out there for a little while. And we almost could have put Dominic Scelzi's name on the list or on the board as well, as he filled in and was able to get McFadden and Roth up there in that top 5 at the end of the year. If Scelzi or nobody else filled in, we wouldn't talk about McFadden right now 4th in the overall championship standings. When it comes to the midweek standings, he was 5th overall, so pretty good between the midweek and the regular season as well. His money earned throughout the year with just High Limit Racing was $209,039. That is with the race purse only. He got $85,000 for 4th in points, and then he got another $8,500 for 5th in the midweek money series standings. So north of 300 grand there for McFadden when it comes to just High Limit. In the point standings, he was 39 ahead of Brent Marks, and he was 172 behind Rico Abreu in 3rd in points, meaning that Rico will be the next driver that we do here on the season in reviews. And, McFadden, I mean, you might be surprised to see him finish ahead of Brent Marks, after missing that many races. But McFadden really did not have too bad of a stretch of the year where he was in trouble. Really didn't have many issues throughout the season. I mean, you could look right here. He had 1 provisional to use throughout the entire year. I want to say it was used at Port Royal during the Tuscarora 50 weekend. He struggled there, but really that was about it when it comes to on track. Like, his car just wasn't fast. He wasn't fast, that type of thing. He did have 5 DNFs though. I mean, the DNFs, you could add an assist there for Brad Sweet for 2 of those. When you look at Salina Highbanks and Texas Motor Speedway, he had a flat tire at Tri-City Speedway. He had some other issues here throughout the year, but those DNFs were really spread out throughout the entire year. It wasn't like he was crashing all the time, and most of the time when he did, DNF, it really wasn't his fault. His best finish, as we mentioned, he did get 3 wins on the year, but he also had 9 other podium finishes. So besides the 3 wins, he had 9 other podiums, and he led laps in 7 different races this year. So he could have easily had 7 wins, but he only had 3. That Salina race comes to mind when he got crashed. He was in the lead for that one. SprintCarRatings.com. This is an interesting stat here. He was 14th overall this year by their ranking system, which is actually down from last year. He was 9th last year in the SprintCarRatings.com system. So losing 5 positions after having a great year. So I guess last year must have been really, really good for James McFadden. Prediction from me for the beginning of the season, I had him somewhere between 4th to 6th in points, so I nailed that. But I did have him from 5 to 7 wins, so I was a little off on the win department. But like I said, he led 7 races, so he was very close to ending up there between that 5 to 7 win category. But still a really solid year. His best stretch of races, in my opinion, was between races number 30 and 38. He had top 10 finishes in all of those races, and he did have 2 wins as well. So a pretty good 9-race stretch right there for McFadden. And his worst stretch, as I've mentioned, with previous guys here, the last couple of season reviews, when you get higher in the standings, there's really not a terrible, stretch for a lot of these guys. For McFadden, all I could really find on this front was between races 18 and 20. So 3 races he did not finish in the top 10 in those 3 races. And that was the only time throughout the year where he had back-to-back finishes outside the top 10. And it came in a trio of races. So just those 3 right there were the only time in, at least back-to-back races where he was outside the top 10. And so that goes to show that McFadden was very, very consistent throughout the whole year. And that is something that he has significantly improved on since he started coming over here and running full-time in the States. When he first got over here on the Outlaw Tour running with Casey Kane, there was moments where he was kind of, very, very streaky, but he's cleaned that up quite a bit. Roth Motorsports and him had a really good combo. Brent Ventura is the crew chief. They were just solid all night or all year long, each and every night. His average finish ended up being 8.5 on the season, which was 4th best with the series. If you're new to these season reviews, this is his stats, his kind of more in-depth stats. The green writing is where he actually ranks up against the rest of the 16 drivers with High Limit Racing. So that 8.5 average finish was 4th best this year. 8.9 average start in the main events was also 4th. His average qualifying, 6.2, was 3rd best. And that is another thing that has really improved with McFadden's game here over the last couple of years. His qualifying has gotten much, much better, and it shows right here with a 3rd overall best with the series. His dash appearances, he had 20 dash appearances out of a possible 39. He was tied with one other driver for 6th best with the most dash appearances. He did have 4 dash wins, which is actually tied with 3 drivers for 1st overall. So if I'm not mistaken, McFadden, that's the one stat that he was the best in the series. So most dash wins tied with 3 drivers overall there. He only had 1 hard charger award, which was a 3-way tie for 12th best. And in the quick time department, he had 4 of those, which was a 4-way tie for 5th overall with the series. He only had 3 B main event appearances. That is another thing that he has really improved on over the last couple of years, is not being in the B main. That is tied for the 2nd least amount of B main appearances this year with one other driver. His average redraw spin wheel when he got into the dash was a 15, and that is a 5-way tie for 5th place. And then in the heat race win department, he had 12 of those, which was a 3-way tie for 2nd. So McFadden was 2nd in a lot of stat categories here on the board. Top 5 efficiency, he had 14 top 5 starts. He finished in the top 5 11 times. That is a 78% clip there, which is a 2-way tie for 4th best overall this year. And in his top 10 efficiency, it goes down just slightly. 31 top 10 starts and 23 top 10 finishes. That is 74% of the time he would start in the top 10 and also finish there, which is 10th best overall. His plus minus is only plus 22, which is 11th best overall, but he was obviously starting kind of more in the front half of the field, not allowing him to have the luxury to pass, slower cars as he's coming up through the field. He wasn't in the B main very much, so he wasn't coming from behind that often. So the plus minus kind of makes sense there. His races with a positive plus minus, meaning he finished ahead of where he started at, was 27 races this year where he did that. That is a 2-way tie for 10th best overall. And his average finish from the first 24 races of the year, which is 8.5, and the second half of the year was a 9.1. So McFadden did kind of, fall off the pace just a little bit there at the end of the year, but still was really, really good, 9.1 to 8.5. And his average pill draw was a 32 when he came up to the table, which was in sole possession of 9th overall. He had the 9th best pill draw of the season with High Limit Racing, which is kind of rare because almost everybody else is at least tied with one other guy in that department. But for McFadden, he was sole possession of 9th. Now, let's look at what the community had to say about the year that McFadden put together this season with High Limit Racing. The community tabbed 430 votes on this poll, and I guess we can now officially say that if somebody does not vote in one of these options, it does put 0%. And I think this also just goes to show that McFadden really is not hated by anybody. I mean, 0% in the D to F category. That is the first time we've seen that with any of these season reviews. His A grade, 62% of people said he had an A, 33% with a B, and a C for 5% of the vote went to that grade as well. For me, I just wanted him to have maybe 2 or 3 more wins, but you got to admire the effort that he put together to miss those first couple of races and still come back to run 4th in points. You would have loved to see what he could have done if he did not miss those races, where he would have ended up in the points. But for me, I think I'm going to give him a B plus, just because I wanted him to have a few more wins in there. But still a really, really good year for McFadden. And his future plans, they have not, I guess, been announced officially yet. But from all, the sounds of it, he's going to be coming back next year to run a partial schedule with Roth Motorsports. Probably going to run the West Coast Swing with High Limit and the Outlaws. Probably going to come back and run the Knoxville Nationals, the Kings Royal. But it's going to be a, very partial schedule. I'm going to say maybe 30-ish races, 40-ish races. And that's all we're going to see for next year with McFadden. Now, what did the community tab say on the comment section? We got one comment here from MJ Ryman. B, maybe B plus, big fan, but he's not a threat to win every night like some other A-tier drivers. I just don't agree with that. I really do think that James McFadden is a guy that can win each and every night, and it just kind of showed all year long. I mean, if he did not get wrecked a bunch of times by different drivers, I mean, he could have won way more races this year. The game 311 says, gotta be an A, missed the first four and still managed the top 5 in points. Who knows what could have been if he didn't miss those first 4? And if you take his incidents with Brad away. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then we've got one from KFost91197. I'd say it was an A minus. He was very consistent, but when Roth got his car right, he was on a roll. I was there when he won Placerville, got to interview him. I like J-Mac, and we will miss him in 2025. And that's one thing that a lot of people mention on those comments is that they're going to miss him for next year. I mean, he's a guy that is very, very hard to replace, a fan favorite, a hell of a shoe, and just a guy that, you don't see very often in sprint car racing. Like I said, we're going to see him 30 or 40 times next year. But that's just not enough, man. People love McFadden, and we're going to get to see him, though, coming up here in a few weeks when we get to Perth for High Limit International, and I'm sure he's going to be a threat to win those races down there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this season in review. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and comment down below. We could have another video coming out later on today. I did hear there's a schedule potentially going to be announced later on today. If not, we will talk to you guys again here tomorrow on the channel. We're getting closer and closer to potentially starting our Chili Bowl Nationals coverage here on the channel. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk to you guys again here soon.